In this video, I'll go over the basics on how to make a nice render in Blender, taking that image, saving it out, and adding it into a graphic software such as Photoshop. So right now I'm in Blender and you see this nice little phone model. I didn't create this. This was actually a free model I got online just for the purposes of doing this tutorial. So right now you can see in my scene collection, I only have the phone. I don't have a camera in there. Now, usually by default, when you create a scene, there'll always be a default light and a default camera. But in case you accidentally delete either of those, if you want to add a camera, it's quite simple. You can go to add camera and you'll have a new camera added into the scene. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to object properties. I'm going to just zero the rotations. I'm going to change this one to 65 for a little bit of angle. And with the move selected, or if you press G and snap it to the axes, I'm going to just move my camera um, into place like so. So if I actually wanted to see what this camera can see, I can press the right mouse button whilst the camera is selected and press set active camera. There is a shortcut, which is the number 0 on the number pad. So if I click on that, you can see I can go in there, but if I press the 0 on the number pad, I can go in and out of the view. This is very handy if you want to see what you're rendering out, because obviously whenever you do a render in Blender, it's going to do it from the camera. So with the camera selected and in the object properties, what I can do right now is maybe I want to kind of frame it better right now because obviously it doesn't look great. So with the camera view active, and if I click and drag on say like the locations or rotations, I can just ever so slightly kind of move it around a little bit, maybe increase the size of that, bring it back a little bit. But as you can see right now, my field of view for the camera is pretty narrow. Maybe I want to change that. I can do that by going to data. You can see the little camera icon here for the camera's data properties. And what I can do is I can actually change the focal length, so I can kind of increase and decrease it similar to how I did the object properties, just click and drag, or I can kind of, click it there or put in say like specific numerical values that I want. You can also change the type as well, so if you can go from perspective to orthographic view. It's very zoomed in at the moment, so I want to increase that, and you'll see that it does more of a, I guess, an isometric, so almost like a three-quarter top-down sort of view if you're doing orthographic. But I'm going to stick with perspective for now. As I change the focal length, I might have to go in and just kind of slightly adjust these aspects a little bit. Something like that could work. Now, if I was to do a render right now by pressing F12, give it a second there, you can see right now that my scene is black. Now, why is that? There's a few reasons. One, there is no light. But two, there's also no data properties for the world, so for the actual scene itself. So I can kind of create like a basic default world properties here. Now, obviously, by default in Blender, there will always be one. I have removed it just in case you want to see how to add it in yourself. So if I press new, we have sort of like the default surfaces here. You can't see it right now, but if I do press F12, render, you can see we've got some like basic sort of lighting in here and like just like a gray backdrop. And if I want to change that backdrop, I can change the color here. So maybe I actually want more of like a blue sort of backdrop. If I render now, you can see now that I've got this sort of like this blue sort of color going on right now. But I'm going to just go back to the default to where I am. So maybe you're like, okay, I have the camera set up. I now want to do a nice render with some nice lighting. So you can add some basic lighting in here using the light options here. So you can do, say, for example, like a sun. And in the the data properties for this here, we can increase the strength of it, the angle as well. If I click on render here, we will see the changes in real time, essentially. It kind of changes a little bit. And I could be like, okay, I want to use this type of lighting. Maybe I want to increase the strength. Maybe make it slightly warm and be like, cool, I'm liking this lighting. I like how it's kind of, bouncing off the model. And I want to render it out. I can press F12. Wanting to save this image right now, I can just go to image and then save once the render is actually fully complete. go in and press save. And I'll just save it here as like fawn test. And you can see now that I've got this nice image in Photoshop. But there are other ways of doing it. So yes, this could be used. This could be nice for a little portfolio piece. But what if I want multiple views of this phone? I could do another render, but then I have to kind of go in, crop the backgrounds and stuff to make sure it kind of like fits together nicely. I can actually do a transparent render of the phones, getting rid of these backgrounds. So if I go back to Blender, turn off the render. Oh, that's the wrong one. If I go to render properties, there is an option to turn on some transparency. It'll be under film and transparent. There we go. Lost it there for a second. So right now you can see obviously there's like this checkered sort of like image in the background. If I press F12 again, okay, my image is fully rendered. I will cut down the rendering time as well, so you might see that for me it's almost instantaneously that it's actually rendering out these images. But it could take a couple of minutes or maybe like half a second, not half a second, like half a minute. It kind of varies on the hardware that you have in order for like a image to render really nicely. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to press image, save. I forgot to mention as well, you can change the image format to like different ones. But obviously this being a transparent image, we want to keep it as a PNG. So I'm going to call this phone test transparent. Save that. And then what I'm going to do as well is, whilst I'm here, I am going to maybe move this camera. And I'm going to do like a 3/4 view. Trying to get that bottom bit in there as well. There we go. That's nice. So I'm going to press F12 here. And I'm going to wait for this to render out and then save it out as well. Okay, now I have my second one. I'm just going to save this out here. 2. And I'm going to go back into Photoshop. So obviously this is the first render with the background on. So now if I open up these two, you can see now that it is a PNG and it is actually transparent. Same with the second one as well. So what I can do is, you'll see a lot of times as well that a number of artists will actually have sort of very, very basic sort of backgrounds with sort of different view slash angles of their models, just to kind of show off the whole kind of range of the model, like how it looks from sort of different angles as well. And when you're doing your portfolio, that's kind of something you want to do as well. So what I've done here is I've created like a simple sort of 1080p image board here, and what I can do is I can kind of click and drag these both in here. So maybe this could be like the front one. That one over there. This one here. And maybe I can also change the background as well. So I've got like a little gradient. I've put a couple of different sort of grays in there. And then I can just kind of create like a nice simple gradient there. There we go. So something like this could be like a really nice render that you can save out in whatever file format that you want and put it onto your portfolio website. Now, we've got some really nice renders here, but a lot of times when it comes to 3D renders, you do want to see the wireframes of the models as well. I think it's really important for a lot of artists to kind of showcase, like, look, I know how to do really nice topology as well. To show the wireframe of your model in a screenshot, what you can do is you can go to overlays here. Now there is this little arrow here. If you press on it, there is an option for geometry. If you click on here, you will see that it will show the wireframe. Now I've changed my wireframe to blue. If you want to change it, all you have to do is go to Edit, Preferences, Themes, 3D Viewport, and then press Wire and change it. Because by default, it's usually in sort of the black. But if you want to make it stand out, you want to change the color. So white would be a good one. green or blue are kind of like your sort of more bog standard ones to go for. So I'm going to kind of go for like something like this. Now, if I wanted to take a render, if I press F12, even with the wireframe on, you can see once again it's just doing like a sort of nice clean render without any of the viewport or any of the Blender background being seen, which isn't good for us. If we want to actually take a render of this with the wireframe on, you'd have to go to View, Viewport Render Image. Click on this. You'll see that it renders out the viewport, but you can see that the grid is also visible as well as the axes, which isn't great. But so we need to hide these. Now, if I click on here again, I can press. Well, the grid one doesn't work, but you can turn off, say, flaws, the axes. You can turn those off. Extras as well can be turned off. And if I go back to viewport, render image, you can see now that I don't really see anything else here. And I can just go to image, save, and I'll just call it wireframe transparency 3. Go back here, file, open. And you can see now that we have this nice image here as well. It is a bit small. Ideally, you want to kind of render a larger frame rate. Like me scaling up isn't ideal because obviously, with raster images, if you blow them up, they're going to be more pixelated. So it could be a case of actually maybe I want to scale all of these down so I can get all 3 images on here, because having like a breakdown of your images is pretty useful to show. You might want to have like, okay, your 2 beauty renders here, and then like your third one that kind of shows the actual wireframe as well. So something like that could be quite nice to put in a portfolio. If you wanted just to have like the gray model without the textures on, all you'd have to do is just turn on this option, just the shading, and you get this version of it that you can render out as so. Now, at default, Blender will render out images at 1080p, so your standard HD format. Now, if you do want to change that, you can go to Render Properties, to Output, and you can change the resolution here. So make sure, so if you want to do like a 2K or a 4K render, you want to just change those to the appropriate resolutions. Bear in mind, this may also increase render time as well. So please bear that in mind if you are doing renders. Now, the final thing I want to talk about is the world properties. So right now I've been using a sort of a bog standard. Let me set it back on first. A bog standard sort of light using like a sunlight here, but you can use alternative methods of lighting a scene using something called HDRI, which is high dynamic range images. So essentially, these are images or environmental images that actually contain lighting information inside it. So these are really useful if you want to kind of have more sort of realistic lighting and have some sort of more higher fidelity lighting for your model. So I'm going to delete this here. So there's a really great website that I do recommend. If I just bring it up. So I type in HDRI, Polyhaven. So there are numerous different sort of HDRI environments that you can download, which all have their own set of lighting. So for example, if I go to this one here, this one is actually paid for. Some of them are free and some of them are actually paid for. So let's go for say this one here, HDR. If I download that, and if I go to Blender, I've got a lot of tabs open. Here under color, if I press the little yellow button here and go to environment texture, what I can do is I can load up a texture. So if I go on my downloads, HDRI. So here we got this HDRI, yeah, this HDR environment. If I open this image here, should have opened it. Let me check it. Try again. There we go. Render properties, so we don't have the transparency on. Turn that off. Press F12. You can see now the background has changed. It's no longer just the gray background by default. Because we're using a HDR environment image, it's actually got sort of the lighting information. And you can see already that the lighting has changed because that HDR image has the lighting information in there, and it's encapsulating the model for us. So you can see it's making these really nice beauty renders. So it hasn't got as much shadows or more softer shadows compared to just me using, say, like a normal point light or a sun, whatever it is. You can use HDR images to really create some really nice beauty renders. And again, have a look at what's available because each environment is going to have its own set of um, lighting information. So, for example, if I go back into here, I have downloaded some earlier, so HDR. So I have this sort of warmer one here. Press F12. You can see now that it has this sort of more the sort of orangey lighting that's coming from this image. So a lot of artists will use HDR environments to create some really nice beauty renders. So I highly recommend checking out Polyhaven and getting a bunch of these images and finding what works for you and using that for your renders.